Okay, here we go. So we did multiplying binomials last week, and multiplying we did binomials, trinomials. We basically multiplying polynomials last week. Today we are doing special cases, ones that are individually different. Okay, you can still use FOIL and you can use box, but if you learn the shortcuts, which is today about shortcuts on particular types of multiplying, you're going to be better off. Okay, and the better off, the easier. If you learn the shortcuts and learn to recognize things, you'll be better off. And you have to learn to recognize what they look like. So the first ones we have, the first two up here are perfect squares. I have x plus 2 squared. You cannot multiply, take the square across addition. You do not square the x and square the 2. That is not how this works. X plus 2 squared is x plus 2 times x plus 2. Okay? Now, which you can FOIL it out. X times x, x times 2, 2 times x, and 2 times 2. And then your like terms are in the middle, and you get x squared plus 4x plus 4. That will work, not a problem. However, there is a shortcut for perfect squares. And if you can learn the shortcut and use the shortcut, it will not only make this easier, it will make factoring it easier later on. So, these shortcuts, 3 steps. First step, square the first term. So I take x and I square it. If I take x and square it, what do I get? I get x squared. Step number 2, multiply the 2 terms. So I take x times 2 and then double it. So I multiply the 2, I get 2x, and I double that, which means when you double something, what do? Multiply times 2. So 2 times 2x gives me 4x. And then you square the last term. 2 squared is 4. If you have a perfect square, that's your shortcut. And look, we got the same answer. Works either way. If you learn the shortcut, it will help you when we're factoring later. Not absolutely necessary, but it's nice to use a shortcut when you can. You can always FOIL it out. So, shortcut on the next one. Okay. I square my first term. Get x squared. Multiply the 2. X times negative 5, and what's your negatives? I get negative 5. Sorry. I get negative 5x. And if I double that, what do I get? What's twice that? Negative 10. Get negative 10x. And then I square the last term. Negative 5 squared gives me plus 25. And it will always be positive for your last terms. When you're squaring a negative, you always get a positive. Shortcut. Really easy. If you don't remember the shortcut, not a problem. What do? Ooh, that's x minus 5 times x minus 5, and you FOIL it out. So you can always do that. You can always FOIL it out. Shortcuts are nice. Shortcuts will help you more later than they will now. I'm sure you'd like to be able to use the shortcuts. I know a lot of you are lazy and don't want to do things more steps than you have to. Do I lie? Okay, next one. These are extremely unique problems here. Look very closely at the problem. X plus 2 times x minus 2. What is the only difference between these two things I'm multiplying? Plus and minus. I have one that's a plus and one that's a minus. Other than that, they are exactly the same. This is called a sum and difference. You do not need to remember sum and difference, but this is called a sum and difference. Plus and minus, exactly the same except for plus and minus. The shortcut for this is even easier. Take the first term and you square it. So I take x and I square it. What do I get? X squared. Minus, always minus. Take the last one and square it. I take 2 and square it. What do I get? I get 4. These are the only ones that do not have a middle term. And if you FOIL it out, your middle term will drop out on you. And you can FOIL it out. You will get the same things. If you FOIL it out, first terms, x squared. Outside terms, negative 2x. Inside terms, positive 2x. Last terms, negative 4. And look what happens. Your plus 2x and minus 2x cancel, and you get x squared minus 4. The only time you get 2 terms after you multiply it out is if you have a plus and minus. Exactly the same except for plus and minus. Otherwise, you will have 3 terms and you multiply them out. The only time you don't have 3 terms is when you have this, plus and minus. Exactly the same except for plus and minus. If you learn to recognize plus and minus, this one in particular is really important to recognize and learn the pattern. Really, because going backwards from here to there, oh, hey, it's exactly the same except for the 2 squares with the minus in between. It factors this way. The better you are at multiplying, the better you are at undoing. So, when I do this one, what's my first thing I'm going to have? I'm going to have x squared, square the first term. And then minus, what do I have next? 25. Take the 5 and square it, and I get 25. That's it. Like I said, I love these shortcuts. Only time you don't have a middle term, plus and minus. Does it need to be the plus 1 first and the minus 1 second? No. It could be x minus 5 times x plus 5, as long as it's plus and minus, as long as that's the only difference between them. Does not matter which one comes first. Okay? Questions? Okay, turn the page over. Let's do some of these shortcuts and work them together. So this first one here, my first step is to square the x. So what am I going to have in my first term? X squared. Now I multiply those two. X times 4 gives me 4x. I double that, so what's my next term? I know it's Monday, but come on, work with me. 8x. Ooh, thank you. At least somebody's working with me. And then my last term, I take the 4 and square it to get 16. Next one, what's my first term? X squared. Okay, my middle term is a little more difficult on this, but it's not bad. I multiply the 2 and I get negative x. If I double that, if I have twice that, what am I going to have for my next term? Yeah, minus 2x. And at the end, what am I going to have? I take negative 1 and square it to get positive 1. 1 squared is 1. 1 to the 12th is 1. 1 to the 3 millionth is 1. Ooh, this one's a little harder. 2x, and I square that, which means I square the 2, giving me what? 4, and I square the x, so 2x, and I square that, I get 4x squared. I multiply the 2. What is 2x times 3? 6x. And then when I double that, what do I get? I do that times 2, right? So I get plus 12x. And then what do I have at the end? Plus 9. Take 3 and square it to get 9. Once again, do you have to do this? No. You could go, oh, that's 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 3, and FOIL it out. You'll get the same answer in the end. It'll take more steps. You'll still get the same correct answer if you do it right. Okay. So next one. I take the 3x and square that. So 3 squared is 9, x squared is x, so I get 9x squared. I multiply the 2. What's 3 times 4? So I have minus 12x, and I multiply that times 2. What's 12 times 2? I know, it's always the same people, 24x, but at least I get somebody responding to me. And at the end, I take the negative 4 and square it to give me 16. Questions? I went too far. There we go. These shortcuts are easier. Once again, exactly the same except for plus and minus, right? Doesn't matter which one comes first, the plus or the minus. In fact, if you look at all 4 of these, they are different. Some have the plus, some have the minus first. It doesn't matter as long as they're exactly the same except for plus and minus. Shortcut for these are easy. Take the first term and you square it. I get x squared. It's always minus. And you take the last term and square it to get 9. Same thing on this one. I take the n, square it to get n squared, minus, and I take the 6 to square it, and I get 36. And it's the difference of 2 squares because they're both squares. Okay, this one's a little harder, but it's still the same thing, exactly the same except for plus and minus. What do? I take the first term and I square it. I take x squared and I square it, gives me x to the 4th power. Minus, and then I take 8 and square it, 64. Easy peasy. I take 2x squared and I square it. So 2 squared is what? You're right, it isn't. Ooh, somebody caught me. Did you see what Mrs. Kersey caught? Are they exactly the same except for plus and minus? No, they're not. Oh my God. So if you see this, what should you do then? FOIL it or set up a box. Not exactly the same. Should be. There's got to be a typo. So I would multiply those. 2 times 2 gives me 4. X squared times x gives me x cubed. First terms. Outside terms. Negative, I almost screwed that one up. It is Monday. 5 times 2 gives me negative 10x squared. Inside terms, plus 10x. Last terms, negative 25. And where are my like terms at? Where are my like terms at? Normally, yes. But are these like terms? No, there are no like terms on this one. And the reason why is I have a squared here. These two are not the same power. Every once in a while, you will get a goofy problem that does not have any like terms. It's not going to happen very often, but it will happen once in a while, particularly because it's a typo. Questions? Okay.